Mohapatra and Ruchi Kalra, alums of IIT and McKinsey, created history by becoming India's first husband and wife team to build their respective startups into unicorns. OfBusiness and Oxyzo. While Mohapatra is the CEO of OfBusiness, Kalra is the CEO of Oxyzo. But what do their respective startups do? OfBusiness helps companies buy raw materials such as metals, chemicals, agri-commodities, and building materials. The company claims SMEs get the best price for their raw material requirements via OfBusiness's bidding platform. Its technology platform negotiates with more than 100 manufacturers and suppliers across India to get best guaranteed prices on structural steel, polymer, paper, and cement. Oxyzo Financial Services, the lending arm of OfBusiness, became a unicorn with its maiden funding round of 200 million, a rare feat. The platform has also started lending to new age businesses in sectors like logistics, warehousing, and direct to consumer, besides financing suppliers of OfBusiness. Both startups are profitable and have plans of becoming listed entities in India in the next year.
Hello and welcome to yet another edition of Bits to Billions. We are with the founders of not one but two unicorns, Asish Mohapatra and Ruchi Kalra, a husband-wife duo who created history by becoming the founders of two unicorns, as I said, OfBusiness and Oxyzo Financial Services. Thank you very much for joining us on Bits to Billions. You guys took the "Hum do hamare do" line very literally. Like two founders and two unicorns. How did that happen?
You want to go first?
Hum do hamare do, yeah. Nice way to put it. First of all, thanks for having us here. So, I think there were two businesses to be run, and there were two of us. So it was just maths, right? It was matching. So the businesses that we run are quite connected in the sense that they draw synergies from each other, and hence it made a lot of sense to actually start both of them together. And over a period of time, they became independent in terms of their own operations, and we just split and divided roles. So that's how.
But Ruchi, you kind of hit it out of the park with Series A. Like very few unicorns become, very few startups become unicorns at the first instance. How did that happen?
No, so as Ashish was saying, that we started both the businesses together, right? And there were a lot of synergies in terms of OFP tech and what Oxyzo was doing. And Oxyzo was already built out as a very profitable entity and a sizable business before it actually picked up the first direct round of funding into Oxyzo, right? So it was not just valuation just came out of a business plan or a project plan. It was already saying that, okay, we already are around 3,000 crores in AUM, we're already profitable. Last year we made 95 crores in terms of profit. So it was something that, okay, now the business needs to grow to the next level and kind of, take its own path than being just under the shadow of OFP tech. And that's how, in fact, amongst our founding team as well, we split roles between the different founders in terms of focusing on Oxyzo as well as OFP. So it was envisaged as a business that we build on a standalone basis, and once it's sizable enough, take the first round of external funding, so as to say.
So it was a business that was funded by OFP for a period of about 3 to 4 years before it actually raised its first external round of funding. So that's the technicality around it.
Right, and two profitable unicorns, which again is a rarity. We were just doing an analysis of 105 unicorns, and I think less than 30 are profitable. So that's another feather in the cap. But both of you, again have similar backgrounds in the sense that both of you went to IIT. I think different IITs though, and both of you worked with McKinsey for a spell. Is that where both of you met as consultants?
That's right. We met. We not only met in McKinsey, we actually met in an engagement where we were both working together in the same study with the same client. So that's how we met.
Okay. So you all were kind of advising a client together, and did that?
So that actually helped us a lot, in fact, in future, because when you meet each other in a professional setting, you're able to, build a very different kind of respect and trust level in the other person's ability. So I think that was just the starting, and we continued to work together post that?
Yeah, I think not just in McKinsey, in that study, we ended up working together a lot, often while in McKinsey, and we did a lot of other professional pursuits also together when I had quit McKinsey and joined Matrix as well. So I think other than just a personal relationship, we've worked with each other a lot more in many other settings, and hence there is I would say a very healthy bit of, as she said, respect and affection for each other. So.
Right. In fact, your career trajectory actually after McKinsey was quite different. I mean, you went to Matrix, you became a VC, looking at healthcare, not at manufacturing or construction, and you continued at McKinsey for a bit before you guys decided to start up.
Right.
So how did the aha moment kind of happen for both of you? And were you able to convince her to leave McKinsey and start up?
It was tough. It was tough. It was tough because she just
who would
made
leave
partner.
A stable job and
No, there was more than a stable job. She had just become a partner in McKinsey, which is like one of the most sought after roles that you can have all over the globe. Apart from that, she was expecting, like I think the date of incorporation of the company and the date of birth of our first and only kid is 6 days apart from each other. So, so there was that moment wherein I had kind of decided, okay, let's do this, and this makes a lot of sense given where things were. And she was in transition of thinking about what to do next. And she was far separated from the entrepreneurial world per se, and so she evaluated and hopefully made the right choice. So.
Yeah, absolutely.
I have regrets, Ruchi.
Absolutely. I mean, the fact is, what I actually loved in our last 6 years of journey is that as I look at what Ashish set out, saying that this is what he wants to do, I think it's always been a very strong aspiration to saying that, okay, how do we build even bigger and bigger, right? And the vision actually has been something which is quite different from how I used to think. I was more in terms of saying I was doing a lot more financial services, and then when he put out the vision saying that this could be this big and this is how it could be, I think anybody who came along,
she had a tough time believing it in the beginning. So
anybody was who he was discussing it with, not just me, right? There are other founders as well, right? Everybody just said that yes, we believe in the way you've articulated the vision, and we believe that we are together going to build something big. So I think amongst others, we just jumped.
Right. But Ashish, again, the area that you chose, right? I remember asking you this before, and you said the more under the radar the business is, the more profitable it is, and so on. So, OfBusiness essentially helps companies buy bulk raw materials, whether it's agro processing or chemicals or metals or plastics and so on. And this was in 2016 when e-commerce was very hot in India, consumer e-commerce. Flipkart happened, and then there was Snapdeal and so on. So how come you decided to go in a below the radar, kind of apparently boring kind of business, rather than the hot consumer internet space?
Yeah, so consumer internet was very, very hot. I remember that. So, and that was one of the reasons why we all chose to do what we do, because we thought businesses that were non-intuitive and which the common man really does not think when he is kind of conducting his everyday life is the one where you will actually build a more defensible business, where you will build a business where people are not thinking about it, and hence they will not build businesses that are copycats of each other. So hence businesses are very unique, right? So for example, if you think about food tech or mobility tech, you always take a taxi. So you know what the problems are. So you'll start thinking about what the solutions are. But you don't know about steel. You don't know about chlorine, for example. You don't know whether, what industrial chemicals are and stuff like that. And hence, anybody who can take that knowledge and can build a business out of it will be a far more defensible, will be a far more self-sustaining business for a long term. So that's been one of our, collective core philosophies as a founding team.
But does that argument still hold for? Your moat is not that defensible anymore, because in this space alone, we've seen 4-5 unicorns. There's there's Inframarket, there's Moglix, there's Zetwork, and so on. So,
but approaches are very different. So while we operate in the B2B landscape per se, B2B is a monstrous market in India, right? More than $1 trillion is what the B2B is quoted to be at. All of us have taken very different approaches to actually solve the same kind of need, right? So we are very different from what Zetwork is. Zetwork is very different from what Infra.Market is, and Moglix is fundamentally different from all three of us, right? Different products, different business models, different go-to markets and stuff like that. So every business is very unique. Though we probably compete because we probably, tap into the same share of the customer's wallet, but otherwise almost everything is different. So that's the truth.
And how tough was it to crack into this, the industrial, chemical, plastic, metals space?
It was damn tough, yes.
Because it's not very organized, and even the tenders that come in, I think you guys had to literally create a platform for that,
Right.
where SMEs could kind of check state government tenders and
Right.
union government tenders. As you told me a while back, no one even knows what a tender actually
Looks like. Yeah.
So what kind of shift did it entail for you guys to go from a very organized, high culture place to, a space that needed organizing, that wasn't so organized in India?
So one, it was very exciting because frankly, a lot of what we had seen in operations across a lot of corporates that we had worked with, none of it actually existed out here. So the fact that you could do a lot, or whatever you touched would be gold, the whole thought of that was extremely exciting. So that's one. I think the second thing is that if you leave a few of us, most of our team is actually pretty young and fresh, right? So they love to go on the ground, they love to meet strangers, they're salesmen at heart and stuff like that. So we were armed with this philosophy of saying that, hey, we are going to only work with youngsters, freshmen out of colleges, and that also helped making that transition. And I think third, the very fact that you are making a real impact compared to what we were doing in our other jobs, wherein we were we were associated with making impact, but we are not directly at the center of it. The whole fact is that you're in the center of action is something that helped. It was a tough transition though, but it took a while. I think a month or two, all of us were in.
Right, and you guys hit the road, at least you must be hitting the road quite often, right? Sometimes when we've called Ashish, he would be in, Manesar or Rajasthan or some other place.
Yes. We have to drive around a lot. See, SMEs are a little bit, they want a little bit of that personal touch, right? So you can build technologies around it, but
it's not about creating an app and tell them.
Exactly. An app can help you do business, but it can't be the source of your business. So we still have a huge offline network that actually kind of works in conjunction with what we do online.
Right. If I look at the current macroeconomic scenario, people are talking about, inflation, the US, people are talking about recession. I just wanted to understand how the overall macros is affecting your businesses, because you're in the business of procuring raw materials for, a variety of industries across sectors, from EPC to construction to steel and so on. Are they pulling back on spends? Are they kind of getting into cost savings mode? Are they still investing in those big projects? What are you seeing on the ground? How will it affect your fortunes?
I'll tell you about commerce, and then she can add around the financing bit. So commerce, actually we are in a very sweet spot of what the entire business entails. So we actually have tailwinds both on the demand side as well as on the supply side. So though they have receded a little bit in the last, I would say, 3 to 4 months, but the tailwinds were so heavy and so strong that they've existed. Meaning that on the demand side, because of geopolitical issues of Southeast Asia, China and all that, a lot of that demand, which actually used to go to China.
You benefited from the China plus one.
Hugely. The entire sector that we serve, right? So because of that, you would see sectors like heavy machinery, auto components, industrial chemicals, packaging, wherein stuff used to go to China, bulk of it is now coming to India. India can't even serve that demand today. So that's the big tailwind on demand. If you look at on the supply side, because of variety of issues that happened in the last 2-3 years, whether it is credit squeezing, whether it is COVID and stuff like that, a lot of the suppliers have actually gone out of business, and hence the organized ones who are armed with more technology, armed with more working capital, are the ones who are dominating. And if you put 2 and 2 together, it's a heady concoction, right? So demand, you have a big tailwind. Supply, the competitors are going out, or because our competitors are mom and shop distributors, they are going out of business. So hence,
the supply is getting concentrated
very
in favor
very
of
fast.
the larger. There's a consolidation.
driven largely by technology and availability of capital, which this sector fundamentally never had over the past few decades, right? So hence, a lot of what happened in the developed markets over like decades is happening in India in a super fast period over like, let's say, a 5 to 10 year period, and we're probably in the damn center of it.
Right. Ruchi, in such a scenario, one would, worry about collections, defaults, when there is, stress in business. Again, are you seeing any of those signs in terms of delay in payments or, credit cycles?
No, actually, just taking from what Ashish was saying, that the sectors, obviously there's an overlap in terms of sectors because we address the same core sectors of the economy, right? And as you look at these sectors, there is a boom coming, whether it's in terms of the infra spend, whether it's in terms of actually manufacturing shifting to India and so on and so forth. So in fact, we are seeing a credit demand increase rather than seeing more of a stress on collections in the sense, and more importantly, the SMEs or the mid corporates that we service are more stable in terms of the segment. So they are all servicing a B2B entity. So a business to business is the play that we have, right? So all these guys will be 50 crore, 100 crore, 200 crore in terms of turnover. They are stable, they are banked. So, and these guys are actually now looking at expanding their capacity. They're looking at actually infusion of capital, and hence we are seeing the credit demand increase. More of the stress, as you were saying, is more what we saw in the COVID period, and that too in our segment, because specifically our segment was more stable firstly, and the second thing is our credit is more short term in nature, specifically to buy raw materials. So whenever the economy opened up, people wanted to do business, and hence they needed money to buy raw materials, right? So the combination of the business model and the segment actually was very good for us. In fact, our gross NPAs are only 1.1%, right? And we are now seeing that expansion of credit, which is actually very healthy for growth of business, similar to what OfBusiness is saying.
The same pocket of customers, right? It's just that we serve a different need and they serve a different need.
Do you guys have global ambitions, or is India a big enough market for OfBusiness?
So Indians at heart,
Oxyzo?
but we do realize that what we've built here is a pressing need in many other countries. So we thought of taking some baby steps, like for example, we've started imports of certain raw materials. We've also started exports in certain places where the arbitrage of what we do in India versus what it sells is high.
What next for Oxyzo? Do you have ambitions of becoming a bank? Are there any other licenses that you will look to acquire?
So Oxyzo has been primarily a lender in its life, and it's evolved in terms of the kind of customer segments it's added, the kind of products it's added, and obviously for us in terms of the next layer of growth is just growing the balance sheet firstly, and second is also finding out new avenues of fee income, whether it's on the distribution side, whether it's on syndication side, whether it's on structuring side. It won't require too many licenses per se, but it will require a lot more business building, which will happen on the core base of SMEs and mid corporates that we serve today. So you will see us a lot more in fee income layers, which will get added on to our core lending business.
Right. And Ashish, you spoke about how there's been growth has kind of continued at a steady pace. What kind of revenues are we looking at for OfBusiness?
I think this full fiscal we will be somewhere in the $4.5 to $5 billion in terms of revenues for OfBusiness standalone. This is excluding Oxyzo. Profitability, we've been profitable for the last close to 3.5 years, so we'll continue the momentum into this year. It should be EBITDA ranging from 5 to 6% and growing through the year. So that's our scale.
So is that a good scale then to look at an IPO? I mean,
yeah, very much.
You're already posting considerable revenues, plus you're profitable. That's a metric that the market appreciates. So
Plus
when
growth,
can we see OfBusiness going public?
Well, had the recent meltdown not happened, I think we would probably see, we were hoping to see ourselves in the public bourses in about 6 to 9 months. I think it's got extended by about 3 to 4 months, but
so
within
when
a
you
year.
say 6 to 9 months, the original deadline was October, right?
It would have been December to Jan is when we were thinking. Now maybe add a quarter to it. I think at
April.
our scale we can't stay away for too long now.
Okay, but I mean the last round you did technically was the last round before
That's right.
the 5 billion
That's right.
round.
That's the $5 billion round. Yes.
What about Oxyzo?
So both companies independently will go IPO, right? And this process of demerging out Oxyzo on a standalone basis will be there. Obviously, we have some milestones in our mind in terms of $1 billion book as well as growth in the fee income. And I think you will see similar timelines for both companies in terms of going IPO.
So how's it going to be? Both of you are going to list around the same time, or?
At least 6 months apart. We can't compete for the same investor money. So maybe 6 months to a year apart.
Maybe you can, get the bankers together and
No,
get
there'll always
good
be a
deals.
little bit of a gap, right? So it's more
Yeah, and I think
forward-looking, right?
sectoral investors are also different. So
Yeah.
there are more people
Financial
inclined to do
services.
financial services, and they're different from the ones who will invest in a commerce kind of led business. So I guess that will be simpler.
That's why it was important to have the two companies also separate, because of the
Yeah.
investment thesis is quite different in financial services than in commerce.
But how are you preparing for that? So far in the last 4, 5, 6 years, you all have managed to run 2 unlisted, privately funded startups together, which went on to become unicorns, and now you kind of manage it separately. How's it going to be like living under the same roof and managing 2 separate listed companies with a wider set of stakeholders? How are you preparing for that?
So I think the first thing in terms of being listed, I mean, we've always been two companies, right? So I think that challenge really doesn't change. But I think the big challenge about being listed is first to be clean, very governance led and all that. That's a part of our DNA. That's what the entire founding team as well as the the top team really embodies. In terms of having a clean company, in terms of being governance first, always being statutorily compliant and stuff like that. So that's one. I think the onus on us to be doing a lot more on that front actually increases. So we are very, I would say, cognizant of it, and we'll live up to that promise. So that's one. I think the second thing is about having the discipline of actually, of delivering numbers every month on month, quarter on quarter. Again, something that we've demonstrated over a relatively smaller scale in the last 5 years, but to do it over the next 20 years is going to be a lot more challenging. I would say the third thing for a couple of listed companies is also to stay independent of each other and have handshaking distance in how we conduct our business, so that the market actually truly treats us as 2 independent companies. So I think those 3 things are foremost in our mind when we think about 2 listed companies.
No, so
Anything
I
you
think
wanna
it's
add?
covered everything. Important point here also for Oxyzo specifically is that it's already debt listed. So some of the debt that we have taken is actually listed. So we're already in that loop of compliance and governance in terms of quarterly audits, posting our results and so on and so forth. So we do understand listing actually comes with a lot of responsibility, as well as the fact that then the stakeholders, their expectations on the delivery, etc. And keeping that in view, I think Ashish covered all the points around governance, growth, and independence in terms of how the board is governed and so on and so forth. And it's a journey. The good thing is that we've been very, maybe years of experience before starting up gave us a little bit of that mindset that as soon as we started, we were very process oriented as well. So that gives us a lot of confidence whenever both the companies actually go for listing.
Yeah, finally I want to ask you about an entrepreneur who's really inspired you in the way you've built Oxyzo and OfBusiness respectively.
For me, the biggest inspiration comes through people who are around us.
Give us a name.
No, this name in the sense.
I mean,
you know, you look
for
around.
all the different, meeting
look
rooms,
around,
I
yeah.
noticed.
Yeah. No, you look around and you every day are inspired with the fact that, oh, this person has achieved this, or this person has gone out of the way and done this, right? And it just keeps you on your toes, right? And if there's that one person, then it's very difficult that one person to have multiple qualities. But when you see different people around, you just see that, okay, this person is so calm in stress, or this person is thinking so much beyond and aspiring to do something different. Oh, this person actually put in so much effort that. So I think for me, that energy on a daily basis comes from very different set of people. There are like loads of them to learn from them. Actually. Maybe he has a better answer in terms of one person because he's the one who's decided all those names. So I think being
Yeah, there's
history, yeah.
you know, Dhirubhai Ambani, and here you have Noah's Ark and Disney and Apple and so on. So I'm sure you will be able to give us a name.
Yes, yes, he will, right? So
Well, to be honest with you, I'm more inspired by people who've kind of created countries because it's just wider scale, larger scale and stuff like that. So people who created Israel, Singapore, US, Washington.
He's got a leak on you level.
I think countries are much tougher to build, right? So the complexity is much larger. And as an institution, you have to take care of a lot of things and you have to build a legacy that will last forever, right? So I'm a big fan of people who created countries or whatever, states and stuff like that. So yeah, that's the truth.
Right. On that note, thank you both very much for talking to us on Bits to Billions.
thank you for
Thanks for having us.